Alright, for those of you watching, I searched everywhere for a video on how to replace the AC compressor in a 2013 Ford Fusion. I'm not sure what the model years are from 2013 on up. I know they switched at 2012. 2012 was the newest one I could find for an air compressor switch. So I'm just going to point out a few things that gave me fits, and hopefully you guys can find some use out of it. I'm not a YouTube guy. I've never done this before. I'm just doing it to try and help out. First things first is air compressor stopped working for the air conditioner. Could not figure out why. I did a lot of troubleshooting and then realized that's what it looked like. The entire clutch mechanism disappeared on the front of this thing. No clue how. Don't know where it ended up, but checked a few other things, and it sounds like those are kind of notorious for loosening up on the 2013. So just some quick little tricks that I learned as I was doing this. First one, take off the inner fender liner. Makes it a little bit easier to get to the belt. Goes here over to where the air compressor is, AC compressor is over here, and it's one of those stretch belts, so you kind of figure out a way how to stretch it to pull it off of the pulley. I pulled it off of this one first. Seemed to work pretty well. The other thing is I was fighting the connectors, trying to get them disconnected for the high and low pressure connectors onto the compressor, and I realized after the fact that if I would have just come up here and disconnected them up top, it would have given me enough slack in order to lower the compressor down, still hooked up, and then disconnect those off of the compressor. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I took that shield off of the front, which comes down right here, and thinking it would give me a better leverage, better angles to get up into the compressor area right here, and found out that that did me absolutely no good. So no point in taking that one off. You do have to take off the big one. I got it sitting back there that runs all the way up to there. Here's a look from underneath. I told you that if I loosen those up top, that gave me some play in order to lower the compressor down to get an angle, because this hose makes it almost impossible to get a good bite on your 13 millimeter nuts on those fittings. Alright, continuing. I don't know if this is going to help you guys or not, but it was held on by 3 bolts. Actually 2 bolts, and then a stem that was screwed into the block with a nut that went onto that. And that was held on the a wiring harness. I found it easier to use a small socket to take that thing all the way out in order to give me enough room to drop the compressor down to work. And then there's your other 2 long bolts. Right, you can see the spots where those go. Right there, and then right there. Back there's the one with the stem. There's also 2 wiring harness connections here. Got the front one, then you got one in back. This front one you can get to from the very top if you have long arms and can manipulate it. A lot easier to take off that inner fender shield, like I mentioned. That gave me the ability to get a good angle on it. Remember, when you take it off, not to spill out your oil. You're going to need to measure how much oil is in there to replace back into your new compressor if it didn't come with it. Trying to think if there's anything else that I could tell you on this. I'll maybe take a picture or two once I get it installed back in, so you can kind of see how it all was originally. The key points on this thing is loosen your high and low pressures on the top side, disconnect them. That'll give you some play down on the bottom side once you get your bolts out. Also take the stem out. That goes over here and into the block. That seemed to help me manipulate this thing to lower it down enough to get a wrench onto the 13 millimeters on those high and low pressure connectors. And then there's a nut. Once you get that back into the block, there's a nut right that goes on it to hold the wiring harness and some kind of doohickey for the air conditioning line onto it. I know there's some genius out there that's done this and can probably point out all sorts of mistakes I made on it, but it is what it is. I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm not a YouTube guy. I'm just trying to help somebody else who is having as much trouble as me. See ya.